Welcome back to episode 7 of Let's Talk. Let's talk about being a conservative woman. I don't even have to do this introduction because I feel like everybody already knows the incredible Jill Savage. Jill, go ahead and give us a little intro for yourself.
Anna, you're so sweet, and I'm so excited that we got to know each other a couple years ago, and just the success that you're having, and that you're jumping out and doing this on your own. I really love it. So, of course, when you asked me to come on the show, of course I want to do this. So, a little bit about myself. So, I grew up in Iowa as well, and then really sat next to my dad. So, whatever he liked, I liked. So, it was sports, history, and politics. And I went into the sports world first, and I did that for about 13 years as a sports broadcaster. And I mean, I got to do some really amazing things. Let's be honest, like I got to go around the world for hockey tournaments and the Rose Bowl and Final Fours and college football playoff games and national championship games. Like it was some great times. But then I did realize though, like if we don't have a country anymore, does it really matter all of these cool sporting events that I'm going to? So I just kind of made that decision, and actually ended up, your dad was one of the people that I reached out to, and I was like, you know what? I know I have to get on at the Blaze. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so then in the COVID year, just up and moved to Dallas, Texas without actually having anything finalized anyway in for real for Blaze, but we made it work out, and I became a contributor here at Blaze for 3 years, and now I'm the host of Blaze News Tonight, and it's a brand new show. We started it 2 days before Donald Trump got shot, which is a really interesting time, Anna, to start a brand new show, because we thought, oh, we're just going to kind of ease into this. We're getting ready for the election. We're
Yeah.
going to build up. No, Donald Trump was shot over the weekend when we launched the show, and at that point, everything changed. Everybody was so hyper focused on the news of the day, and it turned out to be a good thing. And yeah, now we just keep it going and ride the good vibes until January 20th, Anna.
Knock knock on wood. I've
Yeah.
genuinely been so nervous. I mean, anytime I see Donald Trump say anything or take even a step outside of his home, I'm so nervous every time. I'm like, why don't you just sit on the couch, make some FaceTime calls? Why don't you go absolutely nowhere until
That's
you get into the
that's
White
not
House?
his personality. I mean, he's out there. Do you remember like the day before the election? I should say like the morning of the election, even because it was what 2, 3 a.m. that he was flying back home from his last campaign stop, and he was like awake, and everybody else is like, can we nap on the plane? Is that okay? Can we do that? And he was just wide awake and like, here we go. So even at his age right now, he is still I would want a nap, Anna. That's what I'm saying right now. I would want one.
I'm 23 and I could use a nap right now, probably actually. I'm probably going to take a nap soon after we're done filming this, most likely.
Don't blame you.
So, one of my first questions for you is, have you been a conservative your whole life?
Yes, I definitely have been. Now, I will say, I think the de facto settings for anybody in this country is that you're naturally just going to be a liberal, and you have to
Mhm.
think your way out of that, right? Because the educational system, Hollywood, all of the factors at play, and they set out on purpose to do this, to take control of all of the institutions. They want to make sure that as many people as possible are liberal. Now, thankfully, the family that I grew up in, I just had that as an interest of mine, living in the state of Iowa, where we get all of the presidential candidates coming through every single time. Like, I remember talking to friends after I left the state of Iowa, and I was like, how do you not know
Mhm.
about these things that are going on? How do you not know who's running for president, who all the candidates are, whatever? And because to me, that's like very basic knowledge, right? This isn't even like getting into Congress and all, like even further down. This is just like who's running for president. I'm like, oh wow, we lived a different life
Mhm.
growing up. But I do remember being still very young, and when Bill Clinton was elected, I don't remember if it was the first or second time, but it was just a Bill Clinton election. And I was watching the results come in, and I remember being sad that that happened, and that's not what was supposed to happen for the country. But there I was. So yeah, so for me the whole time, My whole life, I think that I look at this, and this episode could probably just be like a love letter to Rush Limbaugh and Ronald Reagan and my dad, and eventually your dad can get thrown in there as well, because these are the people along the way that really have shaped who I am. And it's one of these things that I talk with Glenn Beck about every now and then, because Glenn will say, "Oh, nobody's going to remember us when we're gone. It's only, right now that people will remember our time." And I stop him every time he says this. And I say, "No, I consider myself a Rush baby, right? If you go to my ex profile, like, it's written in there because it was so ingrained in me and my upbringing, and it has shaped who I am." So, a long-winded way of saying, yes, I've always been a conservative my whole life.
Did you ever even have like a little like rebel phase where you were kind of like, I don't know, or even a doubting phase at all?
No, because at that point, I think that I just think, oh, my parents know everything. So this is it. Like, you have to like grow up and realize like your parents aren't perfect, and
Mm-hmm.
like world's not just like exactly how you see it as a kid. But I think like that naivete stuck with me long enough to be like, no, this is it. But then I also, once I transitioned from that into actually being able to formulate like why I
Mm.
believe that, I think that overlap was like just enough there that I didn't have to worry about, am I conservative? Am I a liberal? Because I do think once you think your way out of liberalism, there's no going back. If
Yes.
you look at it, Donald Trump right now, right? Ronald Reagan. Let's start back there. He was a Democrat. He left the Democratic Party to become a Republican. Donald Trump, a lot of people in his cabinet were former Democrats. You're not seeing a ton of people going, you know what? I'm a Republican, but not anymore. I want to be a Democrat, because it just doesn't work that way. And I think that is a very powerful message that if you can get that across to people, it really is only when you think your way through all of these issues. And conservatives, they are very good. They have to think their way through because they are attacked all the time, and you have to defend your beliefs. Where liberalism, it's so easy to sit back and just say, "No, this is how it is." Well, why? Well, no, that's just how it is. Okay, but give me an answer, give me a
Mm-hmm.
reason. And conservatives have had to build up those muscles over time, and so you're more aware of what you have to do in those scenarios to get that point across.
See, speaking of being an Iowan in politics, like I don't even think you can consider yourself a true Iowan until you've gone to the pizza ranches and sat down and met with these people. I
Yes.
remember literally being 9 years old, sitting in a pizza ranch, like with an iPad or a tablet in the corner, just like, here we go, Mike Huckabee's just talking. Like that
Yeah.
wasn't like something
Yes.
surreal that other people in the country don't get to experience, you
I say
know?
that all the time. I use like a coffee shop, right? Like that for me, it's just they are literally everywhere. If
Mm-hmm.
we can emphasize anything, presidential candidates will show up. They will show up at your high school. They will show up at your coffee shops. They will show up wherever you're having dinner. They don't care. They just want to say, "Hey, here I am. I'm putting in the FaceTime," because Iowans do care about that. Like they do actually want to see
Yes.
you as much as we're complaining
Yes.
about it. This you really actually do have to go out there and put the work in, which was one of the things that did frustrate me about Trump this last time running, is like, because we're so used to that, and he's like, I don't need to do that. I've
Mm-hmm.
been the president already, and we're like, yeah, but we're used to like we're used to people doing that. So if you could just do the thing, and it worked out okay for him.
Especially when I worked at the family leader for a long time, for about 2 years. That honestly, I feel like my dad kept my siblings and I like out of the limelight of all of the political people. Like it would just be like, oh, guys, Mike's coming for dinner, and be like Mike Huckabee, or like, oh, we're visiting with these people. Like, and I was just a kid, so I was just like, okay, sounds good. Like some of these people would be coming, and I like over to our house, and I just be like, oh, and then it wasn't until I was older and worked at the family leader, and these people would just come to me. Like I remember Vivek coming to the family leader before like he was going to run, just to kind of like meet with us and see what the deal was in Iowa. And I was just like, "Oh, and I just have such my dad's personality, because to me these people are just human beings,
Hmm.
and so people would be like, and
Yes.
and so people are like, oh my gosh, I need to, like I need to get dressed up, I need to do this, and I'm pregnant, and I just am like in a jeans, I'm just in jeans and a t-shirt, and I'm like, hey, nice to meet you, like Ron DeSantis is coming, I'm just like super pregnant, jeans and a t-shirt, like, hey, nice to meet you, like I just am like, that's kind of the mentality, which is again crazy to say because I feel like only Iowans get the opportunity
Yes.
to do that face to face and kind of honestly have a casual face to face with these people and have like a casual nature of coming about it to meet with them.
Yeah, well, one, they always say like the old joke is that marketing doesn't work in the state of Iowa. Like it's so far behind, like that even like the tactics that they have don't work because Iowans just don't care. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
just going to do whatever they want to do. They're going to wear whatever they want to wear. And I do think it's actually nice though, for the presidential candidates to actually have to be real human
Yes.
beings for at least a moment in time and to see who can fake it and who can make it there because we have weeded out so many presidential candidates over the years and you're welcome, country. You're welcome. We've done that for you.
So what does the word conservative mean to you?
Well, that's a good question because I think it has so many different things encapsulated in it. But I think that it starts out with the individual, right? Because whenever you look at leftists, they want to group you. What's your race? What's your gender? What's your sexuality? How many different boxes can we put you into? And that's where you're going to draw all of your self worth. When you look at the conservative side, it's all about the individual becoming the best version of themselves and by extension will be helping the most amount of people possible because it's in their own self-interest and everybody else's self-interest to make sure that all of those things come together. I think you start with the individual, you move then to the family because again, leftists, they want to say, oh, Hillary Clinton, it takes a village. Here, all these institutions, they can help raise your child. Don't worry. We got this. Well, no, the family unit has the rights, the ultimate say of how to raise your children, your own children, which is going to lead to a better society because nobody is going to love yourself, your family, your children more than you do. To me, it's so basic on those levels. And because I'm also a Christian, I also add that in there. Like to me, those two things, being a Christian and a conservative, are intertwined at a certain level
Mm-hmm.
because we have the respect for human life. And you have to start there. Because if you can't even value a child that has yet to be born, where else are you going to you're not going to draw the line at a decent place then down the road. It has to start fundamentally with everybody has the dignity and honor at the very beginning before you're even born. So for me, it really does encapsulate all of those things. Yes, we can add on like the national defense and the free market capitalism and all the other things that, like I grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh rant about all the time. But to me, it really is just who are you as an individual? How can we unleash the greatest human potential in you? And that to me is the ultimate way of trying to figure out if you're going to be successful or not. Do you care about being labeled as Rush would say, a racist, sexist, bigoted homophobe, right? Can you withstand all of these other names that they're going to call? Because they are going to attack you if you try and hold true to these fundamentals that we know for generations have stood the test of time. They're going to attack you for that. And that is it's such a big deal, but the personal responsibility and individuals in the family, that's where it all goes down to.
And so this is a, female geared podcast. And so when people find out that you're a woman with conservative values, what is the normal reaction that you get?
I think it's gotten easier as I've gotten older, but I will say that's it hasn't always been this way, right? I think I've like outgrown a lot of like the liberal friends.
Mm.
But I do remember when I was back in college at the University of Iowa and I was a sports camp counselor over the summer. And I remember we would have these conversations, right? Like, and there was one of my friends and she was shocked that I was a conservative. She said, what do you mean you're voting for,
Mm.
whoever it was at the time? How can you do that? And I said, "Oh, well, I'm informed. That's how. That's how I can do this." And she had no response to this again because as soon as you push back on them, they
Yes.
don't know what to do. But it was very shocking for people, I think, because they just want to like live and let live, and the media and Hollywood, they portray liberals as, oh no, these are the people that are kind.
Mm.
These are the people that care about you. These are the people that are inclusive. And if you met me and I was kind and nice and wanted to help you and, oh yeah, sure, I'm down to help you with whatever. Oh wait, how can you be a conservative?
Mhm.
Right? That was something that I have thankfully outgrown. And honestly, at this point in my life, I don't. If you're going to say any of those things, like I run in a very small friend group as it is anyway. I am not looking for applicants anymore for like to join in like the friend group. Like we're good at this point in time. I have my friends. Maybe we'll add a couple more here and there, but overall, no, I'm pretty good right now.
I equate it a lot with how I grew up homeschooled. If I could carry a conversation with people, a lot, and then people found out that I was homeschooled,
Yes.
a lot of the times people would be like, "You're homeschooled, but you speak so well and you can actually interact with other human beings." That was the reaction that I would get a lot of the time. And I equate that with also being a conservative woman because of the same thing. I mean, I've talked a lot about on this show about like doing theater in town, and obviously that's just filled with the opposite of who I am. And, I was always kind to them and I would sleep over at their house or they'd have sleepovers with me at my house or we'd go to the mall and hang out. And once they started to find out that, I just didn't believe in babies being murdered and I believed that, we should have a great country and things like of that nature, everybody was just shocked. I mean, I had people being like, "I never even thought that you would believe this way. I always thought that you had good values. Like, how can you even believe this?" And I ended up losing, a lot of my friends due to that because they couldn't, differentiate between the two. And even just a few years ago, I feel like it was easier to be friends with people who were on the left because you were able to still have those conversations or even avoid those conversations and just kind of carry on with your friendship. And so, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but have you lost friends, on the way, like especially being brought up, with Blaze TV and everything, and now it's like
Yeah.
way more apparent?
Yeah, so I think that especially going from the sports world
Yes.
over into politics, I've definitely lost friends. Does it bother me? No, not at all. Because you know what? I am the same person that I was then. Now, if you unfollow me on X or whatever because you don't want to see constantly like what I'm putting out there, I don't blame you. Like, also, we can still be friends if you unfollow me on X. Like, that's not a requirement in my life. It is more interesting though on the Instagram side, just to like throw that out there. Because I don't throw that much of the political stuff on Instagram,
Mhm.
right? Like I still want to be like a person on there
Yeah.
that's not just like completely attached to my job at all
Yes.
times. We have a different show page as well, so like that's where the show stuff can live. So when they stop following me there, then I know. I'm like, okay, there it is. But I have actually had some interesting, like conversations because all of the sports writers, all the sports media, I say this frequently, they are more left than a lot of the news media. And whether they are more left or not, they're more outwardly left because they don't feel like they have to hide it. They're like, I'm a sports reporter. Why? Of course, I can
Mhm.
tell you that I'm voting for Kamala. Like they
Mhm.
don't see it as a conflict of interest for their job, so they're very open for it. And it's so funny, Anna, to me, like working at the Pac-12 network and having to bite my tongue several different times when they would run the commercials and the promos and they're like,
Mm.
"Oh, we're so diverse. We're so
Yes.
inclusive. We're so this, we're so that." I'm like, Okay, great. I'll be over here,
Yes.
and just let me know when this promo is
Yes.
done running, and
Yes.
then we can all go back to the games that we actually love, and just go from there.
No, I feel like I felt that way a lot, when I was doing theater in town because of the fact that a lot like kind of how you were explaining, like I'm here to do my job, or in my case, like I'm here to do my favorite hobby, and I'm wanting to just perform, or I'm wanting to just, be a sportscaster. Like I'm just wanting to do these things. It amazed me how over time, I was literally told many a time that I was not allowed to talk about what I believed, like, hey, this isn't really the place for that. Please don't bring up, Trump. Please don't bring up what your dad does, etc. And then, we'd be like sitting around having lunch and everybody would be like, Donald Trump sucks, right? And everybody would be like, ha ha ha. And it was like, oh, okay, so you guys can have your fun and you
Yeah.
guys can talk about what you guys want. But what happens if and then if I chime in, like, I'm not allowed to, like, I guess I'm not allowed to talk about what I
Yeah.
think because
Well, in the
you go.
theater world, they are all leftists, and a
Yes.
lot of the people that consume theater are leftists as
Yes.
well. Anna, you can't tell me like going out there with football. Like these are the people that are also going to church on Sundays, right? Like
Mm.
these are a lot of middle America just Trump voters. So for me, it was such a disconnect between the media and the audience that they were trying to
Mhm.
serve because I could see it for what it was, but I don't even know if they had enough self reflection a lot of times to just even go through and say, oh, maybe my audience doesn't want to hear this. No, they
Mhm.
were just going to force it on you.
So I think one of the biggest questions, one of the last episodes I talked a lot about how I didn't really talk about my views a lot in my social circles until Matt Walsh's What is a Woman came out. And I just remember that movie absolutely changing my life because of just the, pulling back the curtain. And I performed with a lot of these people. And the people that I thought that I was being silent about my views to show them love, I was actually, hindering them by not telling them the truth or being there for them differently. And once I started kind of coming out about my views or coming about who I was going to vote for, you know, the number one question I got was how can you be a woman and justify voting for Donald Trump? And so that is my question to you. How are you a woman and you can justify voting for Donald Trump? Because I am assuming that you did.
Yes, yes, I absolutely did this time around. When I look at this election, it was the easiest vote for Donald Trump because, well, we can have sanity restored in the White House. We can have affordable groceries. We can have hopefully energy independence again. Or we can have Kamala Harris, who, if we go back to Iowa, didn't even make it to the Democratic primary the first time that she tried to do it on her own. Uh, there's no even question this time. I will go back to 2016 though when Donald Trump ran the first time, and it was a loaded field against
Mm.
so many different candidates and Ted Cruz and Jeb exclamation point was a notable one back then. At that point, I was much more hesitant to vote for Trump because, in my opinion, it looked like he was a New York liberal. So
Mm.
are we doing this thing right? Like sometimes like you even look at like a Taylor Swift, right? When you go back to her stardom and she started in country music, well, it's easier to be a star in country music than it is to be in pop music, right? So I'm
Yes.
like, is Donald Trump just trying to make it because he thinks it's easier to run as a Republican than to run as a Democrat, right? At that point in
Mm.
time, we didn't know. And he was saying really good stuff about the border, but you had to kind of take a leap of faith and just say, "Oh, okay. I
Mhm.
guess we're going to see how this goes." Now, what happened then, he gets in office and he's able to execute on a ton of things, right? And we get the Supreme Court justices that came in to overturn Roe. We have an embassy in Jerusalem. We have so many things that he said he was going to do on the campaign trail, and he actually did them. Again, we can go into COVID, blunder. It wasn't perfect. Would we redo this every single time? Yes. Does he now know mistakes that he's made? Is he now trying to right these wrongs? Yes. I think, again, though, it's still a blessing in disguise that he didn't win in 2020, because now so many more opportunities to make real, lasting change in Washington, D.C. is there this time around. This isn't even hard, Anna. Like, to vote for Donald Trump this time around. And this is why you saw it, because he won the popular vote, right? They always say, too big to rig. How are we going to do this? How
Mm.
is this even going to be possible? Well, he didn't just win enough of the electoral college votes, he won the popular vote as well. His message is resonating with people because we are tired of being told that you're racist. Oh, you don't like this trans person that we're having this, that's in Biden's cabinet. No, I don't think that you should be running health and human services. I don't think that you are the right person to be trying to tell
Mhm.
America what is healthy versus what is not, when you don't even know if you're a man or a woman, right? You can't even get that simple thing done. So for me, this one honestly is one of the easiest votes that I've ever made.
I think one of the things, I mean, personally speaking, his personality is not my favorite. There's a lot of times that I see him and I see the things he says, and I'm like, okay, was that my favorite? No. I think a lot of people relate to that, how he
Mm-hmm.
comes about and how he says things. But just to your point, we need reality to start setting back in. And even if you're not a Christian or even not like sometimes relating to, that kind of morality or your that religion, it's like just like you said, why are we having people with mental disorders in charge of humongous government prospects and things of that nature? And so that was one of the things. I mean, and the biggest policy that I am the most passionate about is life, 100%. And so when you see, Kamala Harris up on the debate stage discussing, or multiple times, not able to answer whether or not, when a baby actually is a baby, or, oh, what is late term abortion? Who could tell? Like things like that's scary, especially because I just brought my daughter into the world, 9 months ago. And so it's like, and I look at her face and I remember the ways that I felt with her. And it's like, I just cannot vote for another woman, who believes in those things. And yes, there's been times where he's been dodgy, but he has done and proven things where he is ready to at least listen to people and be like, okay, I'm taking in the common sense. Okay, I see where they're coming from. Okay, I'm going to go there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say the life issue is the top one for me as well when I look at it, because there are so many terrible, gruesome stories that you hear. And the left, they're like, yeah, so, okay, right? Like when you give a woman a pill and she is just bleeding, right? If you watch Abby Johnson's movie,
Mm,
you see it unfold in the movie in front of you, and you see the terrible things that they put women through, that they give them no prior warning, right? She's like,
yes.
I worked here and I didn't know this was going to happen. And then the moment where, you see the baby like pulling away from the needle as it's coming at it, like it can feel that. You
Yes.
see that it's trying to avoid being terminated. It's trying to make sure that it has a chance to live. And, everybody always says, oh, 100% of people that are for abortion were not aborted themselves, right? You
Mm.
actually have to have people that are alive, and we have to have good, strong families. And this country would be so different right now if we had just a value around human life. It would be the biggest change if we could just start there.
Well, one of the first like big political things I ever did was I sat through a 4-hour training that the Iowa Jane Collective did here, where it was like an online like teletraining to become an abortion doula. So
Hmm.
much like a birth doula, they come and they give you advice, or they'll sit with you, or they give you like coping mechanisms, etc. Abortion doula, obviously. And they were literally, explaining the tools that you could order on Amazon to perform abortions at home, and that was a separate training, of course, because we didn't have the time to go through that. But, and that they'll send out, the Iowa Dream Collective here will send out a number that you can text, and they'll just drop abortion pills off at your door, no questions asked, things like that. It's like, it blows my mind that this is where we're at, even because I remember, even when I was in high school or even younger, the debate was really like, when does human life begin? And a lot of the times I feel like the wool was over women's eyes on that. And now, just blatantly out in the open, you'll see those TikToks of all those people on the streets, like trying to stand up for life, and women just passing by and being like, yeah, I know it's a baby, but I don't care, and I'm going to kill it anyways. Or I even just saw a TikTok the other day of a girl being like, I just, I'm pregnant now, but I had an abortion before because I just wasn't financially ready, and I just didn't think I could support it financially. Things like that is just like, it's crazy, this morph over time of how it was like almost like the devil was trying to hide his ways behind people being like, oh, I didn't really know that, oh, I'll think on that, to now it's
Hmm.
just like everything's out in the open, nobody cares, we're dropping pills off at your door, we're showing you the links to Amazon, to get your own, scissors and tools and things to cut women open and take out their baby. I mean, what is it like for your, mental state to have to deal with this every day? Because I think a lot of people who are listening to this can like listen, and then they just kind of turn it off and go about their day. But you are somebody, and like my dad, like this
Yeah.
is your job constantly to look at these things and deal with them.
It is. It's a different way of viewing it, even because I would still consume all of this media before, right? I would still listen to
Mm-hmm.
the podcasts and watch the shows and do all of that. But it is different. And it's funny that you say that. Like I have started like working out more and like reading more books and just making sure that I set time aside, because I think in media in general, there's just a really easy, natural way of being like, the show is my life. This is what is going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. It takes over because it's not a job. It's not a 9 to 5 job. You don't just go home and, the content gathering, it doesn't stop ever. You have to actively make sure that you are setting time aside to go do other things, because it does get really dark. And honestly, leading up to the election, I can tell you, being here at Blaze headquarters, so many people in this building were like, what are we going to do? What is our future? What if we don't win? Because that would have a very real life
Mm.
impact for everybody here. And thankfully we won. But yes, it is something that weighs on me, and it is something that I have to make sure that I set aside extra time to go do something else. Even if it's like, okay, I'm going to get home, I'm going to go work out really quick, and then I'm going to make dinner. And you know what? I'm not going to open my laptop until 9 p.m. or whatever, right? And
Mm-hmm.
just like get one more quick view of whatever is going on that night, and then say, okay, nothing's happening. I'm okay now to just wait until the morning. But it's hard with everything on your phone, with it being
Yeah.
right there, to get away from it even just for a while.
So, what do you think a common misconception about being a conservative woman is?
Again, the fact when we were saying like who we are and how people were shocked if they grew up in, the liberal circles.
Mm.
Oh, well, you're nice. You're not you're not a terrible person, right? I think, to me, conservatives have been painted in such a terrible light. And then you look at it, and you always hear, and we're going to get these stories coming out towards the end of the calendar year like they always do, and oh, like Christian conservatives are the most charitable people in the country. And this country is the most charitable country in the world. So Christian conservatives then are the most charitable people in the entire world, right? Like, we're not terrible people. And it was an urge early on to make sure that people knew that you're not a terrible
Yes.
person. Like it's going to be okay. I'm not racist. I don't care anything that you're doing in your private life. Like great. Like again, like we should love you through this. We should try and say these are the things that we think would be best. But you know, at the end of the day, it's still you. It's still your life, right? And but again, it's the individual. Everything for conservatives goes back to the individual for me.
So, kind of a fun question. So, in your line of work, who have you been kind of the most starstruck to meet? Don't
Well,
say my dad, please.
no, it's
Please
not.
don't.
No,
I'm
no, no.
begging you.
Because your dad, again, he's like been like accessible for longer
Yes.
than like other people. But I would say like I grew up watching Glenn Beck and listening to him, and I remember like going to events because Glenn was going to be there. Like, oh, Glenn, he's here. I need to go see this. And I did several times as just a normie sports reporter trying to just, you know, be there for whatever political event was going on in that area at that time. And now I walk in the building and Glenn's like, "Hi, Jill."
You're
Oh,
like,
oh, oh, hi, Glenn. And he's like, "Hey, I really like watching your show." I'm like, I'm sorry. I know it's on your network and everything, but like, but you watch my show. This is actually very strange. And then to go on Glenn's show a couple different times now is just it blows my mind that that is my life. Like that is what is actually reality. It's not a dream anymore. It's here. And then I got to go to Western North Carolina with him and Mercury One and flew out there on a private plane with them and just had that entire day to see Glenn in action and just be a man of the people and just try and help as many people as we could. And it was a life-changing experience that I'll never forget. And so I think now I see Glenn in like a little different light because of
yeah.
all of those things that have happened. But I always knew. So that's the weird thing is I always knew I was going to work at the Blaze, but then when it actually happens, it's still like, how do you know my name? How is this happening?
It was weird when my dad had his movie premiere. It was very weird to see him, Glenn
Yes.
Beck, in person. Like I remember him walking by me and being like, "Okay, this is like a weird like moment for me." I feel like, obviously because of my dad, like I'm able to get kind of like some of those inside meets that other people don't, which,
Yeah.
I'll take full advantage of always. Always, always,
Yeah.
always. And once when my husband Steven and I got married, we were planning a honeymoon to Disney World. Come at me for that, but we were at the time, and because it's honestly the best. But I'll be done with that. But right before then we went on a mini honeymoon to see Matt Walsh in
I
Wisconsin.
remember this. I remember this.
And I will never forget how I felt. Like my heart was racing. And I remember sitting next to my husband, like we have not even been married for a week, genuinely.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
remember looking over at him and being like, does my hair look okay? Like, do I look okay? Like, we're about to go up and take a picture with him, like, do I need to fix anything? Is everything okay? I'm like looking at myself, like, in my camera. My husband's like, what is happening? He's
It's like
like,
you
are
didn't
you
even
all
care
right?
this much on our wedding day, Anna. What is happening right now?
And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I remember, like it was very quick because Matt Walsh is like what you see on the camera in the video is genuinely exactly what he is like in person. And so it was like people were like in a line up to the stage and you would go up and you'd be like, hi, and then you'd be done. And I remember I was like, Steven and my husband was like, what are you going to say? And I was like, I have no idea. And I was like in the line, like, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? What am I going to say? And I said nothing. I said absolutely. And like this is what is a woman's prime time. Like I could
Yeah.
have been like, you
You're
changed my
there.
life. Your movie changed my life. But no, he was like, hello. And I was like, mm-hmm. And that was that. I've never been more embarrassed in my life. And I was just like, okay. And that was it. And I took the picture and I just walked off the stage and that was that. And I remember getting to the car. And then he came to Iowa. And then I saw him again. And that experience was crazy. We went to the University of Iowa, and the marching band was surrounding everybody's vehicles outside, like not letting them leave. that was like one of the crazy experiences. And I still didn't say anything to
I
Matt
was gonna say,
again.
but did you talk to
No,
him?
I did not again. So
Okay,
Matt Walsh.
the first time I can understand it. The second time, you've already met him, and you're like, at least just be like, "Hi, I'm Steve's daughter."
I know. I know.
That's
I
it.
couldn't even bring myself. Like the people that worked for him or that were working with him were super great. Like they knew the whole thing, Like had no problem speaking to them. Like I'm an outgoing person, so I was like, "Hey guys, blah blah." Steve dates his daughter. I always drop that when I can. And because there's not a lot of places you can. So
Yeah,
it's like if I can, I'm going to. But no, the minute I got
those
up
are
there,
fighting
it was
words to some people. So
like,
you're like,
yeah,
"No,
I
you
did
like
say
me. This is
that.
okay.
Yes, yes.
I'm gonna say it when I can."
It was just, I don't even know what happened. And so, Matt Walsh, if you ever find yourself watching this podcast, I'm sure this is just exactly right up your alley. Just wanted to say hello. And that's
Well,
that.
at some point, you will be in the same room with
I
Matt
have to
Walsh
be.
again. You will be. It's going to happen. I don't know when,
I have to be.
but it absolutely will happen. And Anna, you're going to have to talk to him.
I'm going to have to. Like, I'm gonna have to take a deep breath and just, maybe I'll pass him a little note and just be like, hi. I don't know what it is. It's like I think it's because he had such an impact on my life that it's like I don't even know what I would say to him and I would be scared because he has the type of personality that's like very, what is the word I'm looking for? It's very, like I don't want to screw up my words. It's like if I were to meet Ben Shapiro, I'd be so nervous about using the wrong grammar. Like I feel like that would be him. He'd be like, "No, that wasn't correct." Like that's
Mhm.
the type of personality that I'd be like nervous to meet any of these people.
I
Maybe
love.
that's how people feel about my dad. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I love that your dad always says about Ben Shapiro. He's like, oh, somebody that I'll actually prepare for an interview for because he can handle my intellect. And you know what? I respect his, so I actually have to prepare for a Ben Shapiro interview, which is just like a great mic drop for everybody else.
I love the content that they've been putting out recent. Like Ben's like review of Wicked just made me laugh, honestly. He's just like talking about Cynthia Erivo, he's like talking about Ariana Grande. I'm like, okay. Like he's not the Ben Shapiro just like discussing all these things. But anyways, a little tangent, sorry. But so two questions left for you. One, what is your favorite part about the platform that you've been given?
I think being able to just tell the truth, say what I want to say what needs to be said. That is one of the nice things about Blaze is that they do not come at like nobody's ever going to be like, "Oh, you know what? You really shouldn't have said that last night on the show." Right? Like if you get something wrong, correct it. That's really the only rule. And, Glenn always says lead with your mistakes. If you're going to say something and it wasn't accurate, come back the next show, do it right off the bat, and carry on. But at any point here, nobody has ever come up to me and said, "Yeah, you know what? We'd really like it if you would frame it this way, if you would do it that way." No, it's you're able to actually go through and read the information,
Mm-hmm.
distill it down to what you believe is the truth, and share it with people. And I think in this time, in this culture that we live in, that is so incredibly important. And I feel very fortunate to be able to go do that. And, just to go through and go on your dad's show on the Days Group and do every bleep Lord Nefarious says, because you never know what's going to come at you, because Aaron is a mean, mean man when it comes to some of those videos that we go in. I go in every Friday and I'm like smiling, happy, excited. And then you play like a 4-minute video of Aaron's montage and you're like, well, that sucks. So have a great weekend, everybody.
Yes, yes. And my last question for you. So, I feel like there's a lot of girls and women out there who it's kind of hard for them to stand up for their beliefs, whether it's work, whether it's their hobbies, etc. So, what is your advice to maybe the lack for a better term, closeted conservative women out there, or even just conservative women in general who are like, you know what, I'm fed up with this talk, I'm fed up with
Yeah.
these policies, etc. Like, what is your advice to them about standing up for what they believe in?
Well, if you're not going to do it, yeah, if you're not going to go out there and stand up for yourself, no one else will, right? So at some point, you have to take ownership of your life. It goes back to the personal responsibility. You can start. You don't have to go on and take the entire world on at once. Start with baby steps. Say, this is the most important thing to me. And I'm going to make sure that if somebody says the thing that I don't agree with, you can politely just make it known that, hey, you know what? That's how you feel. That's not how I feel, right? And you can just take smaller steps and adding on to it and coming back and making sure that you have all the facts at your disposal, because when you're armed with that knowledge, you will feel more empowered to go out and share the things that you believe, because ultimately this is the best part. We have truth on our side. We know that when you get down into it and you research topics and you figure out what's actually happening in the world, it's all on our side. Everything is coming together for all the conservatives out there. So this is the best time as well, right? Like, the
Mm.
vibes are shifting. I'm so glad that Kamala Harris tried to put vibes in this campaign, because vibes are, they're real right now, Anna, and they are moving in such a positive direction. Now, again, we don't know how long this is going to last. We are going to ride the vibes as long as we can, but there's never been an easier time in my adult life to say conservatism is cool. We are the cool kids right now. More people want to join us. More people are paying attention to what's happening with the Trump transition team and everything else than they ever have really been before. And it's an exciting place to be, and owning that knowledge and combining that with the power that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you are going to go out there and do great things, and you don't need to be afraid of everybody else. And I think that comes with age, that you stop caring what everybody else thinks the older that you get, and that is one of the greatest gifts of life. And just go out there and be yourself, because the people that actually matter are still going to be there, and the people that don't matter, well, they were meant to be in your life for a season. I'm a big seasons person in life, and not
Mm.
everything is going to be great all of the time, but you're going to get to the places where you're going to feel like, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And if you don't feel that way, keep going.
Awesome. That's great. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Of course, Anna, anytime. And I can't wait to see you back in Iowa sometime soon.
Yes, yes. And thank you for watching Let's Talk Episode 7. Let's talk about being a conservative woman. Thank you so much.